Hello, I'm Todd Phillips, the editor of Canadian Auto Dealer. We're joined today by Jim Carroll, one of the world's leading futurists. Jim has been doing his version of predicting the future for a better part of 30 years, and he's a highly sought after keynote speaker around the globe, speaking to business audiences. And he's going to be one of the keynote presenters at the 2026 CADA Summit. So, Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me in. I'm looking forward to the event. It should be a lot of fun.
And the dealers will be looking forward to hearing from you as well. And I know, maybe at the start, predicting the future is a tough enough business, but even for you, these have to be very unpredictable and uncertain times.
Oh, it's weird. That's the only way to describe it. If anybody asked me today, what's your prediction for the future? Well, it's become really weird in the last year, and it's only becoming weirder. And I think that's because, I mean, obviously the massive wild volatility, uncertainty, and let's get right down to it, just plain craziness of what's going on in the world today.
And so, in terms of the moods of your clients, you speak to business audiences and you speak to business leaders. Are you finding this elevated level of uncertainty or stress? Because, they, get paid their bonuses and everything happens in the business community around, outcomes that they're trying to drive. And it's very, very uncertain times. So, what advice are you giving them this era of? I know you talk about this era of acceleration, but this is even beyond that. What do you say to business leaders to help talk them off the ledge?
Well, I mean, everybody's gone into sort of a state of what I call aggressive indecision right now. If you think about it, I'm in the business of big decisions. I'm brought in by CEOs of companies worldwide to talk about the big trends which are impacting their industry and the big decisions they need to make. I set the stage for the trends which surround those big decisions. And I think what's happening right now is a lot of people are just deferring those big decisions. There's sort of, all sitting around waiting to see, well, what's going to happen next? We're not ready in all this volatility to make those big decisions. And that's a problem because, despite that indecision, the future is going to unfold. The trends are going to continue. Things are going to continue to get faster. Change is going to happen. Disruption is going to occur. And so there's sort of this weird disconnect between the action that, people are willing to make right now and the speed with which the change in this period of wide volatility is unfolding. It's just a weird time, when it comes to tomorrow.
And we talked earlier, just before this chat, about even a new book that you're authoring, just on this idea. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, in March, I think we all sort of, came to conclude that, look, the economy is going to be going through this period of volatility. And I started writing this series. Well, what did organizations do in 2008 when we had the big global economic meltdown? I spent a lot of time talking to companies worldwide about how to work through that. What did they do after the dot-com bust in 2001? I spent a lot of time on stage talking about that. So I started writing this blog series about what do people and leaders need to do when uncertainty is everywhere. And partway through, I realized that's a book, and that became a book that was released in June, like literally 2 months later, called "Dancing in the Rain: How Bold Leaders Grow Stronger in Stormy Times." And it's all about what do we need to do when the future's weird and volatility rules. It's a series of guidelines, lessons. Auto dealers could use this to think, look, the future's going to happen. Here's where I'm going to be in 5 years. Here's what I need to be doing right now to make sure that I can be a part of the trends while I'm doing all the firefighting that I need to do at this very moment to survive. It's really a sort of a guidebook to, I mean, think about it, dancing in the rain. It's going to rain as, the storm is all around you, but, ignore it, go out and make the most of it. That's the mindset you need to be in.
Well, maybe we'll change it a bit. The summit's in February. We'll call it Dancing in the Snow because I imagine that's what we'll be facing in February at the summit. But we'll be happy to have you make your way through the snowstorm and speak to dealers. So on that front, what are some of the? We don't want to steal all your thunder here because obviously we want dealers to show up, snow or otherwise, in February to hear your presentation. But what are some of the key areas that you're really going to be hitting at the CADA summit for the car dealer audience?
I think we know that the automotive industry continues to undergo big change. I mean, I regularly read and follow what Jim Farley of Ford is saying. The architecture of the vehicle is changing. We know what's happening with EVs, even though there's a lot of uncertainty as to how quickly that is going to unfold. But we know that a car becomes something much more simple with this architectural change that occurs. He likes to talk about the fact that, he took apart a Tesla and a BYD and, there were a couple hundred miles of wiring as opposed to several thousands of miles, in a vehicle, if that's the right, way to frame the numbers. Big architectural change, continued consumer behavioral change driven by technology, look, immersive technologies and, virtual reality, things like that. New influencers on what we do when we are undergoing the car purchasing decision. There's also sort of a flip side to that. Surveys are showing that the social media generation is for the first time starting to not use social media as much. So will it be as big an influencer in the future as it has been in the past? You know, the future sort of is flipping upside down. The speed of technology driving the cabin experience. I mean, look, you know, our cars are becoming iPads on wheels. It's all about the dashboard, and there's a lot of debate and a lot of upheaval and change occurring as the dashboard undergoes the same speed of change and innovation that an iPad does. I mean, there's so many trends unfolding at such a speed. And I mean, the typical auto dealer is out there, they're feeling whiplashed. I mean, you know, what do I do? What do I align to? How do I figure this out? Where do I go? What do I hook my horse up to in terms of the trends? And that's what I'm going to try and clarify and put some reality on. There's so much going on. My job is there to provide a little bit of clarity and insight on how to interpret all this wild and crazy stuff that is going on.
Well, maybe it'd be helpful just to have them eliminate areas maybe they don't have to obsess about as much because there's so much confusion out there. It's almost information overload. So,
The people I deal with, everybody's overwhelmed by the speed of change. And that's something that I do talk about quite a bit. You know, how do we manage to cut our way through that and calm down a little bit by getting a better understanding and filter to understand where these trends are taking us?
well, you'll be in an audience full of leaders, the makers. They're the ones really in charge of their businesses. Some of them operating single rooftops, some of them operating big dealership groups, you know, with hundreds and hundreds of employees. So they really have to make decisions and bets. And one of them is in the area of AI. It's sort of the last area I really want to touch on here. Dealers are kind of being overwhelmed by new providers showing up saying they have the AI answer for everything, trying to integrate them within their operations. I know you do specific keynotes just on AI and AI adoption to help leaders get their heads around that. So I'm sure you'll be touching on that a bit. What are
This is just like the early days of the internet. I wrote 34 books about the internet in the 90s, and there was so much hype and hysteria about it in the early days. Corn Ferry had a great quote that said, the context of what is going on is people are deciding to use AI, but what are we going to use it for? IBM said this is the greatest keep up with the Joneses spending frenzy in the world right now. We have something called the Gartner hype cycle, and they say that every single trend goes through a curve. We hit the peak of inflated expectations, we hit the trough of disillusionment, and eventually the plateau of productivity. And to a degree, I think right now we're on the peak of inflated expectations. The hype is real. The hype is hysterical. We know it's going to have a profound impact in the long run, but in the short term, everybody's trying to figure it out. Everybody's trying to figure out where it's going to take us, what it's going to mean. And so I'm going to provide some clarity on that. This is a 10-year voyage, not a 6-month voyage. This is something which is going to profoundly impact both the car, the way we do business, the way we manage our operations, but it's not going to happen in the next 6 months. And so dealers need to be cautious. They need to be aware of the snake oil, but they also can't close their eyes to it or turn their backs on it because in 10 years we're going to wake up and go, wow, that had a significant impact. And it's just like the internet in that regard. I mean, think about it. When the internet appeared in 94, 95, everybody said you got to have a website. And everybody rushed to build a website without really knowing what they were doing that for. But now, if you look back, your website, your customer interaction tools, which are digital, are so fundamental to your operation. You couldn't do without them. But it was a long and rocky road to get there to understand the role it would play. And we're going to go through the exact same type of cycle with AI. It's early days. Be careful, be cautious, but don't close your eyes to what's happening.
Well, it's a great way. Maybe we'll stop it there because I say I don't want to give everyone the full meal deal. They'll have to show up and buy their ticket for the summit and hear you in person. And I look forward to meeting you at the event. I look forward to hearing your entire presentation. It's going to be a great day. So,
Yeah, we'll see you there. Looking forward to it.
all right. Thanks for joining us, Jim.